Hi everybody, it's Frank here. Well, Mint 17.2 is out. It's free, and the world is a better place because of it. Thank you, Clem. This version has a number of performance improvements, and so far seems to be a very nice and stable system with a clean and usable user interface. Even better, it's a long-term support release and supported until 2019. I've already upgraded a couple of my systems and thought I'd show you some things you can do to get up and running with this shiny new version of Mint. So let's say you have Mint 17.1 on your system and you're thinking about upgrading, not too sure, you don't know if you want to do a complete fresh reinstall or what you're going to do, if it's even worth it. I've got good news for you. You can now upgrade directly from 17.1 to 17.2 without a reinstall. If all your level 1 and level 2 updates have been installed, simply click on Edit in Update Manager and select Upgrade to Mint 17.2. And then just follow the prompts here and you'll be good to go. Are you thinking about doing a fresh install? If you are, I highly recommend doing drive encryption, either full disk or just the home drive encryption, which you can set up when you install Mint. Make sure you create good secure passwords and don't forget them. This way you'll have some protection of your data if your computer is stolen. Another thing worth mentioning here is that although UEFI is supported, Mint will not boot using Secure Boot. It does not use digital signatures and has not paid money to Microsoft to be certified as a secure operating system. Just turn off Secure Boot to get around this. So let's assume you have already gone and done the deed and you've installed Linux Mint 17.2 Rafaela. And things are looking good. This should be what you have at startup. And the first thing we want to do is I'd point out that they have upgraded the user guide, which is pretty cool. You might want to save that while you're here. Another thing you want to do is get rid of this thing at startup. You don't need this stuff. And the very first thing we always want to do before we do anything else is just update the system. To do that, just click on this little shield icon down here. And the first thing it's going to do is a Mint update. Just install that. Type in your password. And once that's installed, just click on the next one, Install Update. Okay, now it's found a bunch of updates that have come out since I did the actual first initial install on this machine. And it'll find a bunch of them. By default, Mint 17.2 displays levels 1, 2, and 3. They used to display 4, I believe. In my video on what to do after installing Linux Mint 17, I went in here into Preferences and Levels, and you could automatically unselect to have them display the unsafe level 4 and dangerous level 5 updates. And it looks like they've kind of done this by default now. It's good for them. Level 3 I generally install only if it's something I think I need, or if it's a security update, I'll install those. You can go ahead and install all of them. So at this point, these settings are good. I'm just going to cancel that, and I'm going to select all and update. Okay, my system is up to date now. I've restarted, make sure everything is loaded. It didn't cause any conflicts or cause any problems. I know I can start the system okay. I just check Update Manager again. It says it's up to date. Let's do a refresh and just make sure. And we're still good. So let's go ahead and close that out. One more thing we want to check here though, and that is go in here, go to Administration and Driver Manager, put in your password. And what this will do is check to see if there's any proprietary drivers available for your hardware. If you have things like added video cards or sound cards or whatever else added to your system, and there's proprietary drivers, they often show up in here, in which case you want to go ahead and install those. And sometimes you might even see multiple versions of the driver for the same device. Pick the latest one. If in doubt, go to the manufacturer's website and see what they recommend. Because I'm doing this in VirtualBox, it comes up with this thing. So otherwise, normally I would see nothing in here because I don't have any specialized hardware. So our system is up to date. So now that that's up and running, let's go ahead and go through some system settings and make a few little changes here to tweak things a little bit. To do that, go into Menu and then go into the Control Center or System Settings. And we'll just go through these kind of one at a time. First one on the list is just backgrounds. Click on that. We've got a ton of options here. All these different background images you can put on. Go through this stuff. Pick whatever you want, whatever the heck it is, and install it. And they've even got retro and I don't know. Here's one. Let's try that. And then click the back arrow button and go to effects. And in here I don't want any window effects on, so I'll just turn that thing off. And startup animation, I don't want that silly stuff either. These things just slow things down, and I just generally don't like them. This is all personal preference stuff. If you like this stuff, then great, go with it. Myself, I just don't want anything that's needless and slows things down. So I'll go back. Fonts we'll leave alone. Themes we'll leave alone. What else in here? Date and time. What I do, I like to have the actual day and the hours and minutes in AM PM format. So to do that, you just click unlock. Password again. One thing you want to do here is make sure your time zone is set in the correct area. Mine is set for Denver, which is in my time zone, so that's good. And what I do here is I just turn off the 24-hour clock, and I also turn on display the date. And we'll just go back here. It's already done it here. Now it tells me the day and date, and it's AM and PM, and that's what I want to see. So go back arrow again. Hot corners, these things really drive me crazy. I hate things changing just because I left the mouse in a particular place. Luckily, these things are all turned off. That's the way it should be. They shouldn't even be in there, in my opinion, but yeah, well. Languages, notifications, panel, all this stuff is okay. Let's go into privacy. Here's a place where you can turn off having this thing remember recently accessed files. I usually do that. It's just something I don't want. So I'll turn that off. In Screensaver, screensavers are really not necessary to save the screen anymore. The only thing good about them is that you can have it lock the computer when the screen turns off. So in this case, by default, after 10 minutes, it's going to lock the screen and start up whatever screensaver you've got here. This is a desktop machine. I have no need for that. It's just me here using it, so I'm not worried about anybody else walking in here and diddling with it when I'm not around. So I just turn this thing to never. So it just never works. Startup applications, nothing too big deal here. I just leave it as it is. Window tiling. This is something, window tiling and snapping. And what this is if you do something like that, it'll automatically adjust that size and then put it back here and do this kind of stuff. This is another one of those things. I just can't stand this feature. I don't want to be moving something and have it suddenly change shape or something like that, even though in some cases it can be kind of nice. The first video I ever did on my channel was how to turn this off in Windows 7, and I'm going to turn it off right here too, because I don't want any of that stuff happening. If I move this up here, it's because I want it up here. And we go down here to power management. There's some good things in here. This is when it turns the screen off when inactive. Now, if you're on a laptop or something, this is a real good feature. But for me, again, I don't want it ever turning off. So I tell it to never. And now we go to sound. And here's where we can turn off those horrendous sound effects. Right here. Now, a real nice thing that they did that Windows didn't for a long time is you can turn them all off at one shot right there. Done. And you can set your microphone levels and things like that. That's all good stuff. Nothing I need to do right now. So the only thing I want here is I don't want any of these stupid sound effects. The only good thing about them is when you do a fresh install and you hear the startup sound, you know your sound is working. As soon as you got that, I turn them off. Driver manager we already did, software sources, users, and groups, and this is pretty much all you need to do here, or all I do. And you can go through here and you can set all kinds of effects and things like that, and themes, and add desklets and all kinds of good stuff there. Spend some time in there, see if there's things in there that you like and you want to have on there. Generally though, the minimal the better. So I'll close that thing out. And yes, I know I've got the most boring background image, but it gives me a good backdrop to to do this video on, so yeah. So now let's install a little bit of software here. I'm going to go into Package Manager or Software Manager in this case. Put in your password and we'll install a few things. First thing I want to install is a firewall. This is not installed by default and is something that everybody should have installed and operating on their machines. It's real easy to find. Just in the search box type in GUFW, and that stands for Graphical Uncomplicated Firewall. How much better can that be? Double click on that. Not installed. We want to install that goober. Alright, let's go ahead and close this out and go into all applications. It actually comes up not as GUFW, strangely, but firewall configuration. Put in your password. And there it is, and it has a little welcome screen, and it's got some basic information on how to set this thing up. That's good stuff to go through if you really want to. For 90% of the people out there, just turning this on is all you need to do. And what that does by default is it essentially blocks all incoming connections and allows all outgoing connections. Now you might be asking here, how can this possibly work if I'm blocking all incoming connections to my machine? How is it going to work if I go to Google and ask for a search? How is it going to send me back the response with all the, with my search query? What deny incoming means is that it denies any connection to your machine that's not initiated by yourself. In other words, if somebody wants to connect to your machine remotely, they can't do that. If you send a search out for a website, the reply coming back is a response to something you sent out, so that comes through without any problems. And that's what we want to have done. We don't want people connecting or remote connecting to our machine or trying to download files or something if it's something that we didn't ask for and we didn't allow. One exception is if you have peer-to-peer applications or if you're doing online gaming, things like that, you need to open up specific ports so they can connect back and forth to you. You may have to do that, and it's easy enough to do. Just go into Rules and click on the Add button here. And let's say we want to allow an incoming connection, let's see, application. Oh boy, what would it be? And let's say I wanted to allow a connection from Steam, just as an example. What it'll do here, it automatically finds all the ports and everything. And for Steam clients, see the category. It'll give you a message here if there's other things you need to do generally. But just for example's sake, let me go ahead and just click on Add here and see what it does. And the rules have been added. We see that down there, so we can close this. And here's our rule that's been added. It's a TCP connection with this 27015 is the port number, and it's going to allow incoming from anywhere. And we also have the same thing, the same port number, the same TCP, but it's IP version 6. It automatically creates an IP version 6 rule that's duplicated. So that's just an example of how you do this. You can also deny outgoing connections as well. It's not hard to do. If you want to add something and it's really advanced, you can specify a particular IP address or port number, from, to. You can log things. You can do all kinds of wild stuff if you want to. But all I do is I just let it set on turned on, deny, and allow. That's all you got to do. And then just close this. It's a good idea to just log off or restart the system and log back on and just make sure that thing is still set to on. And if it is, you're good. You can just kind of forget about it at that point until you have, or unless you have, some application or website that requires having a port or something opened and set up a rule to allow that. And that's it for the firewall setting. There's still a couple more things I want to install on here. And one is Information Monitor on the hardware. And the reason I want to install this is because my motherboard has all these neat temperature sensors on it, but I don't have an easy way of seeing what those temperature readings are once I'm in the system. And it's kind of cool to have this thing, especially if you're kind of a geek. So we'll go back into Software Manager, and up here in the search box, I'm going to type in hard info. And there it is, display system information. Double click on that. Not installed. This thing's pretty cool. Let's install that. Let's check this out. Let me go to Menu, Applications. Is it called Hard Info in here? No. What is it called? How do I find this silly thing? It's actually System Profiler and Benchmark is what it shows up under. Go figure. I don't know. That's just the way it shows up. So let's open that up. We've got just a ton of stuff. Summary, operating system, the number of boots, languages, display, processor, memory, any of this stuff. If you want to just see what it is here, just click on it and start the graph going, and you can actually graph this stuff in real time. Virtual memory, all this stuff. Whatever you want to do, you can do it in here. USB, you can see what's in there. It'll have your printer. Battery, if you're on a laptop, it'll tell you about that. Sensors is where you go to find your temperature sensors. And all about your network connections, what's going on there. You can also do benchmarks in here, which is kind of cool. You can, let's click on Blowfish and see how I stack up here on my virtual machine. And wow, this thing's pretty cool. It's 5.73 compared to 172.82 for a PowerPC at 280 megahertz. That's good to know. So we're much better than we were in the dark ages. But at any rate, this is a cool place to play around in if you're kind of on the geeky side and want to spend some time. Let me close out of that. Let's install some other cool stuff that we want to have here. One other thing I like to install in here is something from, believe it or not, Microsoft. And let's define that. You just type in Microsoft. And it's the second one down here. It's Core Fonts Installer. So double click on that. And what this is going to do is it's going to install Microsoft TrueType Fonts, including Arial and Courier and things like that. If you're working on, let's say you're using LibreOffice to edit a document that was created in Word, you don't have to change the fonts. You can use the same font that it was created in and edit it that way. So this is a good thing to have installed. So I'm just going to install that. And look at this. It wants you to accept a license. Yeah. Do you accept the end user license agreement? Yeah, of course I do. Because, yeah, forward. We like Microsoft, right? There we go. Now if I go into LibreOffice Writer, and then we go in here into the fonts and scroll to the top. And now we have Arial and Courier and Andale and all this good stuff. So now you can actually edit a document created in Word and back and forth, or created here and then move it into Word and have it keep the same fonts, the TrueType fonts. Great feature. Good thing to have here. Get out of that. And of course, LibreOffice, the full office, is installed as part of the default package for Linux Mint. It's already installed. I didn't have to install it. And while we're in here, there's one other thing I want to install, and that is Chromium, I should say. And there's a reason for that, and I'll get to that in just a bit. But while we're in here, I want to go ahead and just install this. Okay, now that that's in there, we'll go ahead and close this. And now I can find it in here. And now one thing that's kind of a handy thing to do is just right-click on this and add it to the panel. And that'll add it down here, so it's just a quick icon, get out of that, to start that up from right down here. So you have Firefox, you have Chromium, you're good to go there. Well, let's get Firefox set up for us. I'm going to start that up. And first thing I want to do is change this startup page. So I'm going to go in here, Preferences. So when Firefox starts, I want it to show a blank page. And why do I want it to do that? The reason is because I don't have Firefox open all the time. I may only open it just to go to a website quickly and then get rid of it and do something else. And I don't want the opening of Firefox delayed as it's loading some other page that may be heavy in graphics or something. I want it to just open up to a blank page. You can still leave this home page in here and set that to something that you want. And one neat trick with that is, let's say, let me get out of Preferences. Let's say there's a number of websites that I go to every day, and I want to be able to just have all these load up because I check all of them every day. You may have social media stuff, you may have news sites, you may have, I don't know, stock quotes or something, whatever it is, but you have a list of things that you like to just check out every day. So now we've added a few different websites just as examples here, and I'll show you how you set this up. You go back into Preferences, and under Home Page, tell it to use current pages. And what it'll do is it'll just add all those together in here with a pipe symbol in between them. So if you wanted to edit this and you wanted to change CBS to some real news site, for example, you can just edit that in here. And what that's going to do, let's try this. Let's close it and reopen it and see what happens. And right now it's going to open up to that default where there's nothing in here. It opens nice and quick, but I want to see all those sites. And the way to do that is just click on the home button, and now it's opening all of these different websites. So when I want to do this, I'll just go in there, click on that, and it loads them all. No worries. Now while we're here, another thing I like to do that you might like to do, I like to turn off this menu down there. Just unclick that thing. It saves a little real estate on the up and down of your page, which is a good thing. Let's go in here and go back into Preferences and kind of go through this stuff. All of this stuff is good. Search is something I want to change, because I don't want search suggestions. I just don't want them. It's something that just becomes annoying. And all of this one-click search engine stuff, I don't use any of it. But what I want to do, by default, it's going to use Yahoo for a search engine. And, well, nothing against Yahoo, but who uses Yahoo? I want Google, don't you? So click down here to add more search engines. And, well, I don't see it here. And why don't I see it here? Well, they'll give you reasons for that. But what I want to do is find it down here. And there's Google right there. And here's a reason why it isn't by default. Because the other search engines share a little bit of search revenue with Mint. So if you want to support Mint, do that. You can always click on Donate. So now what we got to do, it's not in there yet. See this little plus button? We want to click on that. And we want to add Google. Yeah. Now, I'll actually close this thing out and show you. If I do a search in here, it's going to search using Google. That's what I want. So let's go back into Preferences, Content. We want to block pop-up windows, exceptions. You can add different websites to the exception list if you want to. You'll find a lot of websites require you to have pop-ups turned on. And you'll see a message warning you about this. Just add them to this list, and then you can block unwanted pop-ups and still allow the ones that you want. Right now there's nothing, so cancel that. Applications, I don't change anything in there. Privacy, you can click on this and tell sites that you don't want to be tracked. Clicking on this in no way prevents you from being tracked what you're doing online. All it does is put a little tick mark in your browser that lets them know if they want to pay any attention to it that you don't want to be tracked. So, Now in privacy, one thing I like to do in here is change this setting to use custom settings. And I like to use private browsing mode. And I'll have to OK this to get that started. And it restarts. Go back in here. Custom settings. You do want to accept cookies from sites. You don't want to accept third-party cookies, so I put never. Another thing you want to do here, if you're not using private browsing mode, it's a good idea to have this setting to not accept third-party cookies. That's a good thing. I don't know why that's set to enable that by default. It should be never. And now another thing in here is when using the location bar do suggestions, I find that to be really annoying. I'm trying to type something in here and it's trying to tell me this big list of things. I turn it all off. And that's it for that setting. Let's go into security. And in security, one thing you definitely want to have is you want to have a warning when sites try to install add-ons. And there are exceptions, and that's from Mozilla and Firefox. Those are okay. You can leave those. But if there's a problem and you want to remove one of those, go ahead and remove it. If you want to add somebody, that's okay. I leave that like that. Just make sure this is checked. And in passwords, I don't use a master password. I don't remember passwords for sites. It's not something I recommend doing for security reasons. And also because if this thing crashes and it takes all your passwords with it and you don't remember what they are, you might be in trouble. But there is a way, if you want to have something like this, is you can set up sync, and you can actually create an account, and that uploads things like tabs, bookmarks, passwords, or whatever you want to select, and it uploads that to a cloud server. So if you use Firefox on a different machine that day, you'll have everything synchronized between all of them. And that can be pretty cool if you're using a bunch of different machines and you want those all synced. I don't use it, but that might be something you want to try out. Let's click on Advanced. And in here, nothing I really change here. Check spelling as I type might be something I change, but I generally leave that alone. The data choices, this health report and crash reporter submits info to Mozilla to let them help to improve their software. I don't want anything shared with them, so I turn those things off. Network, really nothing here. We're in private browsing mode, so it's really not saving cached web content after the thing is turned off. This one is a good thing to make sure you have checked, is tell me when a website asks to store data for offline use. And you can have exceptions in here. Make sure that's checked. Update, automatically update search engines. Nah, I don't do that. In certificates, I leave this just the way it is. And that's pretty much it for Firefox, with the exception of add-ons. If we click on add-ons, we'll see that there's a few things added by default in extensions and plugins. One of them is Search Enhancer. I don't want searches enhanced. Disable that thing. It's probably something that shares revenue. I get rid of it. Plugins. This one up here is something I always want to have activated. DivX Web Player, that one's okay. I just leave that at Ask. Ice-T plugin, this is for executing Java applets, not to be confused with JavaScript. JavaScript is generally fine. Java itself is something I don't find that I need it very often, if at all, and I always turn that thing off. Never activate, because I don't want Java to be used on my machine at all, if at all possible. Generally speaking, I never run into a need for it, so I just turn that sucker off. QuickTime plugin, that's fine. Shockwave Flash, if you watch my other videos, you know I'm not a big fan of Shockwave. Flash seems to be a security nightmare, and actually seems to be getting worse lately. There's two options in here. If you have to watch videos and you need Flash to watch those, you can tell it to ask to activate. If you do that, make sure you keep Flash updated all the time. If you see a warning message that Mozilla or Firefox has blocked this application, make sure you update it and restart the browser before using it. And that's because it's found a security hole and it's actually blocking it from being used until you patch that. Another option, what I do, is set this thing to never activate. And if I absolutely must watch a video that requires Flash, I'll go over here and use Chromium. And Chromium has its own built-in HTML5 based player that avoids the Flash issue. That's a real good idea. If you're going to do that, or if you're going to use Chromium to watch Netflix and things like that, or just because you like it more than Firefox, make sure you go in and set all the default settings for security and things the way you like them, just like we're doing through here. But for me, I disable this thing unless I must have it. VLC multimedia plugin, I'll activate that. Always activate that. Windows Media, it's okay. Ask to activate. When in doubt, ask to activate. But the biggies are the Ice-T and the Shockwave Flash. And that's about it. And I'll go ahead and close this out, and we're done with that. And now that we got the system kind of configured the way we want it, it's updated, let's clean up any mess that might be remaining here. And to do that, just go into Terminal and type in sudo for super user do apt-get auto remove. And what this will do is it'll find any orphaned packages or installers or things like that, anything that kind of got goofed up when it was being installed or just no longer needed, and it'll clean those up and remove them. In my case, it didn't find anything, but it's a good idea just to check that and clean that stuff up. Well, that's about it for Linux Mint 17.2. One thing I wanted to add into this that's a new feature in 17.2 is what happens if something goes wrong. What happens if things freeze up or you need to restart Cinnamon? You can use Control-Alt-Backspace, and what that will do is kill your session and take you back to a login screen. And now you can use Control-Alt-Escape, and what that does is restarts Nemo in the settings daemon, and it launches a new instance of the desktop. The good part about that is that your session should come back up as it was, and you probably won't even lose any work. So in the rare event that things do stop working in Linux Mint, be sure and try Control-Alt-Escape first, and you may just come out without any problems at all. Well, that's it for this video on things to do after installing Mint 17.2. We've got the operating system up and running. It looks really good. It's a good, clean, stable operating system that's geared towards getting work done, which I like a lot. It doesn't have a lot of the bells and whistles and the frilly eye candy stuff that seems to be infecting a lot of other distros and a lot of other operating systems out there. And a little bits of that it does have that I don't want, I can easily turn off. Or you can turn them on if that's what you like, and you can customize it quite a bit to suit your own personal preferences. But however you get it set up, you've got a long-term support release that's good and supported until into 2019, which is a really excellent feature. And it's very stable and very user-friendly, especially for people moving over from Windows and more used to that environment. So that's it for this video. I hope this helped you out and answered some questions and gave you some new ideas on how to set up and use Linux Mint, which is my favorite Linux distro out there at the moment. If this did help you out, give me a thumbs up. That helps me out, and I appreciate that. And until next time, cheers.